everybody. Welcome to another day. This is February 7th, and we're just plugging along. Today, we're going to be looking at some poetry. So, today, we're going to be focusing on one of the authors today. His name is Robert Browning, and I have Princess with me. Hey, I also have both of my other cats with me today. That there is Marbelina. Marbelina, say hi. And then the little one didn't want to be in the picture. She just ran away. Both my kitties today with me. This is the one that likes to be held. The other one likes to sit in the chair right next to me. And then the baby's running around. So hope you're doing well so far. It looks like a lot of you turning your assignments. However, I see a couple of you that still haven't turned anything in, so make sure you do so. You don't want to be overwhelmed the last week and then find yourself having to turn everything in at the last minute. It's very overwhelming. So if my suggestion to you is at this point, if you haven't been turning in things, go back to the emails, check it, see what you need to do, and just turn it in. I'm very open about you turning in late. However, if you never turn it in, it will become a 0, and we don't want that to happen because we want everybody to pass the class. Right, Princess? Right. Mwah. So, I'm trying to share with you who Robert Browning was. Now, we're looking back at some of the old days, and these are some of the authors from the old days. So this is Robert. Although the early part of Robert Browning's creative life was spent in a comparative obscurity, he has come to be regarded as one of the most important English poets of the Victorian period. His dramatic monologues and psycho-historical epic, The Ring and the Book, 1868 to 1869, novel and verse, he established him as a major figure in the history of English poetry. His claim to attention as a children's writer is more of a modest, resting as it does most entirely on one poem, The Pied Piper of Hamelin, included almost as an afterthought in Bells and Pomegranates. In case you don't know what pomegranates are, they're the red fruit with it looks like little red seeds. It's very tasty. There's pomegranate juice, and there's pomegranates you can buy in the little bowl. It's called POM, P-O-M. Dramatic lyrics, 1942. And eventually never highly regarded by the creator. Nevertheless, the Pied Piper moved quickly into the canon of children's literature, where it remained ever since, with the dubious honors shared with the fairy tales of Hans Christian Andersen and J.M. Barr's Peter Pan, appearing in almost frequently as adapted versions of the original. So we're going to be talking about that today as well. The Pied Piper of Hamelin. Scrolling down. His approach to dramatic monologue influenced countless poems for the century. Browning was born May 7, 1812 in Camberwell, a middle-class suburb of London. He was the only son of Robert Browning, a clerk at the Bank of England, and was doubtfully religious German-Scotch mother, Sarah Anna Widman Browning. He had a sister, Sariana, who, like her parents, was devoted to Browning. While Mrs. Browning's piety and love for music are frequently cited as important influences on the poet's development, his father's scholarly interests and unusual educational practice have been equally significant. The son of a wealthy banker, Robert Browning, the elder, had been sent to his youth to make a fortune in the West Indies. But he found the slave economy there was so disgraceful that he returned, hoping for a career in art and scholarship. A quarrel with his father and financial necessity it entailed led to the elder Browning to relinquish his dreams in support of himself. Okay. And his family through his bank clerkship. Browning's father amused a personal library with some 6,000 volumes, many of the collections of the Arthurian lore and historical anecdotes that the poet plundered for the poetic material included the source of Pied Piper. The younger Browning recalled his father's unorthodox methods of education in his late poem Development, published by Onslow, Francis and Facts, 1889. Browning remembers at the age of 5 asking for his father was reading. To explain the surge of Troy, the elder Browning created a game for a child in which the family pets were assigned roles and furniture recruited to serve for the beside city. Later, when the child had incorporated the game in his play with his friends, his father introduced him to Alexander Pope's translation of the Iliad. Browning's appetite for story having been withered, he was introduced to learn the Greek as to read the original. Much of Browning's education was conducted at home by his father, which accounts for a wide range of unusual information the mature poet brought for his work. His family background was also important for financial reasons. The father, whose own artistic and scholarly dreams had been destroyed by financial necessity, was more than willing to support his beloved son's efforts. Browning decided as a child that he wanted to be a poet, and he never seriously attempted any other profession. Both this day and the day needs and the financial cost of publishing his early poetic efforts were willingly supplied by his parents. Browning's early career had been characterized by Ian Jack in search for an appropriate poetic form. The first published effort, Pauline, a fragment of a confession, 1833, proved to retrospect of a false start. Browning's next poetic production, Paris, 1835, achieved more critical and regarded as began to move toward a greater objectivity of the dramatic monologue form that Browning perfected over the next several years. Browning also wrote several plays intended for stage, along with closet dramas. However, he was not suited to be a playwright. No. His chief theoretical patron, William, was already booming disillusioned of the play's lack of success and the poet's persistent difficulties in creating theoretical plots. We'll stop right there. I want to show you a little bio about him. Oh, she's tired. You want some treats? Don't do that. Some treats? Yeah. Oh, hold on. Because it's not playing. Hold on 1 second. It's on my other one. Here you go. Here's a little bio about it.
From 1812 to 1899. He could read and write by the age of 5 and had composed an entire volume of poetry by the age of 12. Though it was unpublished, it is still very impressive because, he was 12.
At age 21, his first book was published, Pauline. It received a negative and honestly rather rude reaction from critics. They made fun of him for putting so much personal information into the book, which rather embarrassed him, and he vowed to never reveal such personal information in his works again.
Following the publication of Pauline, he began writing dramatic monologues, and a dramatic monologue is exactly what it sounds like. A monologue that's dramatic. He enjoyed the drama and emotion. He was a real touchy-feely kind of guy.
With everything he published, critics tore him apart, but eventually he grew immune to it and just wrote for the love of writing, not to impress others. Yo, you suck, bro.
You do you, I do me. 'Kay? A few years down the road, he met and fell in love with fellow poet Elizabeth Barrett. Browning's father didn't approve, so they eloped to Italy and spent 15 happy years together before Elizabeth's death. Their mutual passion for poetry greatly contributed to their love for each other.
Their relationship inspired his book, Men and Women, which reflected his passion for his wife. Though it also showed his interest in painters, poets, and madmen. After Elizabeth's death, Browning continued writing. And it was not until he was almost 60 years old that he finally began receiving the recognition for his poetry that he deserved.
Porphyria's Lover. The rain set early in tonight. The sullen wind was soon awake. It tore the elm tops down for spite and did its worst to vex the lake. I listened with heart fit to break when glided in Porphyria. Straight she shut the cold out and the storm, and kneeled and made the cheerless grate blaze up, and all the cottage warm. Which done, she rose, from her form withdrew the dripping cloak and shawl, and laid her soiled gloves by, untied her hat, and let the damp hair fall. And last, she sat down by my side and called me. When no voice replied, she put my arm about her waist, and made her smooth white shoulder bare, and all her yellow hair displaced, and stooping, made my cheek lie there, and spread o'er all her yellow hair, murmuring how she loved me. She too weak for all her heart's endeavour to set its struggling passion free from pride, and vainer ties dissever, and give herself to me for ever. But passion sometimes would prevail, nor could tonight's gay feast restrain a sudden thought of one so pale for love of her, and all in vain. So, she was come through wind and rain. Be sure I looked up at her eyes happy and proud. At last I knew Porphyria worshipped me. Surprise made my heart swell, and still it grew while I debated what to do. That moment she was mine, mine, fair, perfectly pure, and good. I found a thing to do, and all her hair in one long yellow string I wound 3 times her little throat around, and strangled her. No pain felt she. I am quite sure she felt no pain. Porphyria's love. She guessed not how her darling one wish would be heard. And thus we sit together now, and all night long we have not stirred. And yet, God has not said a word.
Porphyria, by exposing parts of her body that she would not show in public, was showing the narrator that she wanted to give herself to him, completely.
In this time, if a woman wanted to be with a man, this was the same as wanting to belong to him.
This was how relationships worked in their society.
When he realized that this girl was his and he could do whatever he wished with or to her, he did so.
What he wished to do to her just so happened to be killing her.
Not quite what she had in mind, I bet.
Browning did have a fascination with madmen.
Browning passed away in 1899 at the age of 87 in Venice, Italy.
At the time of Browning's death, he finally became a hugely respected literary figure.
All right, so there you go. That's who he was. And back to our reading. We can see how his poems and stories are a little bit scary. Before the estrangement, however, the alliance between Browning and McCreary had a salutary effect. It provided occasion for Browning's composition of the Pied Piper. In May 1842, McCreary's son Willie was sick in bed, and Willie liked to draw, and he asked Browning to give him a little something to illustrate while in confinement. The poet responded first with a short poem, The Cardinal and the Dog, and then after being impressed with Willie's drawing for it, with the Pied Piper in Hamilton, the story of the Pied Piper was indefinitely well known in Browning's home. The poet's father began his own poem in the subject of 1842 with a younger family friend, discounting his effort when he learned of his son's poem. The primary source of the story was a 17th century collection, Nathaniel Whaley's The Wonders of the Little World, 1678. Browning claimed many years later that this was a sole source, but William Clyde Devan notes some significant details in Brown's account, including erroneous date for the event described occur in earlier work, Richard Vestron's Restitution of Decayed Intelligence and Antiquities, 1605, but not in Whaley. Whatever its source is, the Pied Piper reflects on the hand of a master of a storyteller. The poem tells the story of the civic gentry and retribution. Despite to rid of the city of rats, corporate and repulsively corpulent mayor engages in the mysterious piper to charm the vermin away, and the Pied Piper plays a tune that draws the rats from their holes and leads them to the river Wester, where they drown. Only one especially hardy rat escapes death by swimming across the river to tell a cautionary tale to other rats. And the rat story enables Browning to provide an explanation of the pipe's magic. The rat tells the sound of the pipe invoked all kinds of wonderful treats for rats. I heard sounds of a scrapping trip and a putting apples and wondrous grip and a cider presses grip and moving away from the pickle tub boards and leaving a jar of conservative cardboards and drawing a crooks in the train oil flasks and breaking hoops in the butter cask. With the rats destroying their nests backed up, the mayor and the corporation of Hamilton felt secure in regendering the agreement of the piper and refused to pay him 1,000 guilders he demands. Were they offended 50 times the piper's request fee before the rats were eliminated, they now offer only 50 guilders. Thinking of the time when the fine wines they purchased, the money saved. After all, the major claims the piper cannot resist the rats to life. The Pied Piper has a great deal of charm. Sorry. Allergies. Both of the theme and the moral reflect the mainstream of Victorian thought. Browning, however, seems to have held the poem in the little esteem and reported only included it in dramatic lyrics because the need for additional verse is fill out the 16-page pamphlet. Indeed, the narrative poem does not seem to fit comfortably with the dramatic monologue form of the other poems in the book, which include such widely apologized pieces like My Last Duchess and Euphoria's Lover, while the Pied Piper found its own audience, and John Foster's review of dramatic lyrics in the Examiner quoted favorably near half the poem. Critical attention has usually focused on the other poems in volume, the shorter dramatic monologues in which Browning finally found the form and could establish him as a major poet of his time and significant influences on modern poetry. While the Pied Piper differs from most of Browning's adult poetry, much of the charm and delight diverge from the same poetic tools that Browning deployed in his own serious work. However, techniques are praised in the Pied Piper are frequently perceived as defects of adult poems. Victorian critics dislike the predilection of outrageous and sometimes unpronounceable rhymes and excessive use of single rhymes as a vivid account for the rat infestation that opens the Pied Piper. And it opens as rats. They found the dogs and killed the cats and bit the babies in the cradles and ate the cheese out of the vats and licked out the soup of the cook's own ladles and spit the cakes of salted rats and made nests inside men's Sunday hats and even spoiled women's cats. Each critic intended to see Browning's rhyme patterns as appropriate for the light verse in the children's poems, where the emphasis on the entertainment, but the defect of adult poetry with the philosophical or religious concerns. The surge of the Pied Piper in a Crane reference works from the past centuries also suggests problems Browning had in achieving the audience for his adult poetry. He frequently attacked the obscurity of his verse, and much more obscurity derives from the unrevered allusions of the vast body of the Acrana which he had read. Another narrative poem, How They Bought the Good News from Ghent to Alex, appeared in Browning's collection of dramatic monologues, Bells and pomegranates, dramatic romances and lyrics. While not expressly written for children, the poem was printed sparingly in a children's edition of Browning's death after many years commonly included in the children's school text. It remained popular in galloping rhyme and exciting description of the cross-country equestrian race. The poem represents entirely imagery of the 17th mission to relieve the city of Chappie in Germany. 3 riders are displaced in Ghent in Belgium to carry out important message. 2 of the riders' horses fail, and the third that the speaker accomplishes the mission in the universal acclaim. What message is that another secure freedom in Germany's city is never stated. Besides introduce the world to the Pied Piper, then establishing the poet's modus operandi in the verse dramatic lyrics, it also lasting effect on Browning's personal life. Elizabeth Barrett admired his book, and her 1844 poem, Lady Jermyn's Courtship, she expressed esteem in which she held Browning to the linking of the William Wordsworth and Alfred Lord Tenny's as one of the great poems of age. She met Browning, and the 2 poets fell in deep in love. But Elizabeth's father, Edward Mullen Bart, could not countenance his children marrying and leaving the house. On October 12, 1846, were secretly married, and 1 week later, they eloped in the continent. Browning wrote relatively little during the marriage, in part because his family frequently moved because of Elizabeth's frail health. He was usually busy making all the arrangements for housing and transportation. The Brownings had 1 child, Robert Whitman Barrett Browning, called it the pen. Born in 1849, the same year Browning's mother died, both parents doubted the boy, and Robert Browning took a particular responsibility for his son's education and another diversion of the poetic production. And the poet years earlier had produced a major children's poem to amuse the son of a friend. Made no similar creation of his son. However, he continued to work no longer on philosophical poems for adult audience. Browning became later years of a curious phenomenon, the Victorian age, widely regarded for his knowledge and his explorations of the philosophical questions of the Great Renaissance in Victorian life. He witnessed the creation by F.J. Fernald in 1881 of the Browning Society, dedicated to the study of poets' work and thought. Just before his death in 1889, Browning finally published the other poems written for young Willie McCarty, The Cardinal and the Dog, the 15-line poem, The Pied Piper, originated in one of the legends recounted in Whaley's Wonders of the Little World. It tells how Cardinal Griselio, a representative of the Pope at the Council of Trent, was frightened by the aspirin of the large black dog that he could not see, after which had become seriously ill. In his deathbed, he again saw the dog. The poem has elicited little critical response and seldom been anthologized. Its interest today lies primarily in its role as a warm-up to the Pied Piper. Anyone as widely alluded as Browning during the later years of his life is bound to suffer a decline in critical evaluation. Along with other Victorians, Browning was dismissed by influential figures among modernists, including T.S. Eliot, through Ezra Pound, paid tribute to Browning as one of his literary fathers. Following World War II, however, Browning's reputation has been salvaged by a more objective generation of critics who noticed poetic failings, but also traced the influence on the poetic forms and concerns of his 20th century successors. Through his vestries of the critical reputation, however, Browning's major contribution in the canon of the children's literature, The Pied Piper and Hamilton, has retained a popular audience. At the time of the death in 1889, he was one of the most popular poets in England. These are his poems right here. We have the poems Aber Blanger, Among the Rocks, Adrian de Sarto. The bishop orders his tomb at St. Crac's Church, Cablian upon Sebotos, Cleon, Confessions, Count Gismond, Alex of Provence, the Death of the Desert Epilogue, The Espa containing strange medical experience of Karsh, the Arab physician, a face. Franlipolippi, a grammarian's funeral. Home thoughts from abroad, home thoughts from the sea. Laboratory life and love, the lost leader, the lost mistress. Love among the ruins, love and life, meeting at night, memorabilia. My last duchess, my star, never time and the place, now. Over the sea of galleys went, parting at morning, the Pied Piper of Hamilton, Sephora's lover, Prospis, Protus, Rabbi Ben Zara, the real and true sure, the Serenade Villa, song, Topia Isgopoli, two of Campia, up at Villa, down the city, youth and art. Okay, so they said it was a true story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Can you see this?
Quality writing makes your schoolwork better and helps you stand out in the process.
As you can see it.
Meet Grammarly, the digital writing assistant that
great.
helps
So
students
they're
create
typing.
effective.
Oops, why is that working?
Join Kids Hat family. Tia, today I'm very happy. I met one of my friends who was acting all greedy and selfish in class. So I told him the story of the Pied Piper
Pied
of
Piper is a
Hamelin,
story that we
and
told
he
for
soon understood the lesson. Really, Tofu? I haven't heard this one. I would love to hear it from you. The Pied Piper of Hamelin. Once upon a time, there was a town named Hamelin. The town was beautiful, bustling with energy and wealth. But no sooner the happiness of the town was ruined by a plague. Plague of rats. There were rats everywhere. So much so that the people of the town didn't even have a place to keep a step without tripping over the rats. There were rats of every size, shape, every age and color. Nothing worked as a
Oops, sorry, I'm trying to show you the words.
remedy. Not even the cats were able to control the plague of rats. Giving up, the authorities decided to announce a reward of 10 bags of gold to anyone who could help to get rid of the rats. One day, a strange-looking man came to the town. He was dressed in their traditional dress, but all red in color, with a long, peculiar nose and big, wide eyes. He adorned his head with a feather in his hat. He went to the authorities and said, I have a solution for your problem. I assure you that not a single rat would live in this beautiful town. But I want 10 gold bags that you have promised as prize." The authorities were not very sure of his commitment, but still allowed him to give it a try as they had no other option. Soon, the strange-looking man took out a Pied Piper from his pocket and started playing a very strange tune. Within no time, all the rats started coming out and following him. From every nook and corner of the town, so many rats came out.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo! All the best toys made mini. New 5 surprise toy mini brands.
Listen to what these satisfied customers have to say about True Connect's free Lifeline service.
I just want to say thank you to True Connect.
Thanks to True.
That the whole street was filled with them. Very strangely, the rats started following the Pied Piper, who was playing the strangest tune ever heard. The Pied Piper took them to the town's river and entered into it. In no time, all the rats, mesmerized by his tune, fell into the river and drowned. There were rejoices in the town, celebrations all over. Soon, the Pied Piper went to the authorities to claim his prize money. But since their work was done and they thought that this plague would never return, they shunned him off and asked him to leave without giving him a single penny. What selfish people are these? I did them a favor, freed them from such a bad epidemic, and all they could care was to be greedy and ungrateful? Now look how I will teach these selfish people a lesson. The Pied Piper took out his pipe once again and started playing another strange tune. A tune that no one had ever heard before.
What do you think he's gonna do?
In no time, all the children of the town, mesmerized by the music, started following the Pied Piper. The children were so lost in his tune that they didn't realize that they have come out to the outskirts of the town. The Pied Piper took them to a cave and let them in. He kept playing the tune till all the children were inside the cave.
Some people say our trade-in
This
process
one's starting
feels
to
too
get
easy.
good, right?
They can't believe it's 100% online.
He then closed the cave with a huge stone. Only 2 kids were left in the entire town. A boy who was hard of hearing and a girl who had hurt her legs so badly that she couldn't keep up the pace with the rest of the kids. These 2 kids went back and told their parents about the Pied Piper and how he lured all the children into the cave. Soon, the authorities went begging to the Pied Piper and requested him to let their children out. This time, they promised to reward him with 20 gold bags. "I don't trust you any longer. I want my prize money beforehand." Soon, he was handed over his prize money. And he left, never to be seen again. The children were freed from the cave, and the parents hugged them and cried. Watching this, the authorities said,
"We surely have learned a lesson. This man came out of nowhere and saved us from an epidemic. All that we did in return was to be selfish and ungrateful. He surely taught us a lesson of not to be greedy and selfish."
That night, the town rejoiced and celebrated like a festival. It's still said that in the town of Hamelin, if you ever go and listen carefully, you might hear the beautiful sound of the Pied Piper. Tofu, I'm so proud of you. You must be a little naughty, but you surely are a good boy.
Okay, so that was for kids' time. That was the Pied Piper, fairy tales for kids. And that was a story written by Robert Browning. And that became famous. So it's all about don't being greedy, because the people didn't really care about their word. But as you can tell, he mentions about the people caring about their children, right? And so he wants 10,000, or he wants 10 for the rats and 10 for the children. Children was what they value. So this is the other poem that he wrote. That was a short story, but this is called The Last Duchess.
That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder now. Frau Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Will please you sit and look at her? I said Frau Pandolf countenance. And seemed as they would ask me, if they durst, how such a glance came there. So not the first are you to turn and ask thus. Sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek. Perhaps Frau Pandolf chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much. Or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half-flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whate'er she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Sir, 'twas all one. My favour at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, the bough of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace, all and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least. She thanked men, good, but thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900-years-old name with anybody's gift. Who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such an one, and say, just this or that in you disgusts me. Here you miss, or there exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, and made excuse, e'en then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. O sir, she smiled, no doubt, whene'er I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grew. I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. There she stands, as if alive. Will't please you rise? We'll meet the company below then. I repeat, the Count your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretence of mine for dowry will be disallowed, though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. Nay, we'll go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse, thought a rarity which Claus of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me.
Okay. So there you have it. That was the reading. My Last Duchess. Hold on. Here's another one. This is Among the Rocks, same author, by Robert Browning. Oh, good gigantic smile. Oh, the brown old earth, this autumn morning, how he sets his bone to bask in the sun and thrusts his knees and feet for the rubble to run over his mirth. Listening a while, where there's heaps of stones and white breast of the sea lark, glitters sweet. That is the doctrine, simple, ancient, true, such as life's trial, and old earth smiles and knows. If you're loved only what were worth your love, love were clear again and wholly well for you. Make the low nature better for your throes. Give earth yourself, go up again above. Okay, you like those poems? You want to hear another one? Confessions. Confessions by Robert Browning. What is buzzing in my ears now that I have to die? Do I view the world as vile of the tears? Oh, reverend sir, not I. What I viewed there once, and I view again where the psychic bottles stand. On the table's edge, this suburb lane, with the wall of my bedside hand, that lame slope much do as bottles do from the house you decry. Oh, garden wall, the curtain blue or green or heavy, healthy eye. To mine it serves for old June weather, blue above the lane wall, and the furthest bottle labeled ether. Is the house, toppling over? At a terrace somewhere near the stopper, there watched for me one June. A girl I know, sir, it's improper. My poor mind's out of tune. Only there was a way. You crept close by the side to dodge. Eyes in my house, to eyes except, they style their house to the lodge. What right had a longer up their lane? But by creeping very close, with the good wall's help, their eyes might strain and stretch themselves to errs. Yet never catch her and me together. And she left the attic there, by the rim of the bottle labeled ether, and stole from star to star, and stood by the rose-weathered gate. Alas, we loved it, sir, used to meet. How sad and bad and mad it was, but then how it was sweet. Those are confessions. So, like they say, they don't like it, but they do, right? This one, The Death in the Desert. Suppose of Plamthus, the adage host, is parchment of my rolls of filth, hath three akins, glued together, is all Greek, and gloweth from epsilon down to mu, lies second in the surname chosen chest, stained and conserved with juice of Tibereth. From Anxious, my wife's uncle, now at peace. Mu and epsilon stand in my own name, and I may not write it, but I make a cross. And I wait his coming with the rest, and leave it there beneath Prelus. I said if one should wet his lips with wine and sift the broadcast plate and leaf we find, or else the lappet of linen rope, into the water vessel, lay it right, and cool his forehead just above his eyes. The while a brother kneeling neither side should chafe each hand and try to make it warm. He has gone far gone, but he might speak. This did not happen in our outer cave, nor did the secret chamber of the rock, where 60 days since decree was out, we had him bedded in a camel's skin and waited for his dying all the while. But in the midmost grotto, since his noon's light reached there a little, and we would not lose the last what might happen in his face. I at the head of Xanius at the feet, with Valens and boy, had lifted him, and brought him from the chamber in the depths, and laid him in the light where we might see. For smart smiles began in the mouth, and his lids moved, peaceful to the end, yawned, and halfway up the mouth, oh, the cave, the background convert, having his desire, kept watch and made presents to graze a goat that gave us milk on rags of various herb, planting and quench the rock shade keeps alive, so that if any thief or soldier passed, because the precaution was aware, gilding the goat up promptly with his life, such a man might pass on, joyful at a prize, nor care to pry in cold cave. Outside was all noon and burning blue. Here is wine, answered Xanius, dropped a drop. I stood up and placed the lap of cloth about, and chafed the right hand and the boy in the left. But Valens had bestowed him, and produced and broke a ball of nard, and made perfume. Only he did not so much wake, as turn and smile a little, as sleeper does. If any dear one calls him, touch his face, and smiles and loves, but will not be disturbed. Then Xanius said a prayer, but still he slept. It is Xanius that escaped to Rome, was burned, and could not write chronicle. Then the boy sprang up from his knees and ran, stung by a splendor of the sudden thought, and fetched the seventh plate of graven lead, out of the secret chamber found a place, pressing with the finger in the deeper dents, and spoke, as 'twere my mouth proclaiming first, I am the resurrection and the life. Where he opened his eyes wide at once, he sat up himself and looked at us. And then henceforth nobody pronounced a word. Only outside the barkin cried his cry like a lone desert bird that wears the ruff, as a signal we're safe from time to time. First he said, if a friend declared to me, this is my son Valens, and my other son, were James and Peter, nay, declared as well, this lady was John, I could behave. Could that moment doubtfully believe? So is myself withdrawn into my depths. The soul retreated from the perished brain. Quincewan don't feel and use the world through these dull moments done with long ago. Yet I myself remain. I feel myself, and there's nothing lost. Let it be a while. This is doctrine. He won't reach. How divers person witness each man. 3 souls which make up the first. First, to wit, a soul of each and all the bodily parts, seated therein, which works and what does, and the use of the earth and the ends of the man, downward, but tending upward for advice, grows into and again down by the next soul, which seated in the brain, and feeleth, thinketh, willeth, and knows, which duly stands trending upright in the turn, grows into again as grown into by the last soul, and then uses both the first, substituting whether they insist or no, and constituting man's self, is what is, and leans upon the former, makes it play, and played off first, and tending up, holds, is upheld by God, and ends the man, upward in the tread, point in the intercourse, nor to the place, and it returns to him. What does, what knows, what is, 3 souls, 1 man, I giveth Theopas. And then a stick, once fire from the end to end, and now ashes, save a trip to hold a spark. Yet below a spark, it runs back, spreads itself a little where the fire was. Thus I urged the soul that served him till it tasked much more. What ashes in my brain have kept their shape, and what makes the effort is last of flesh. Trying to taste again the truth of things, he smiled, the very superficial truth. As that ye is my sons, and that long since James and Peter had released by death. And I am only he, your brother John, who saw and heard, and who could remember all. Remember all, it is not much to say. What is the truth broke from me above, as once in odd times. Such might not begin. Doubtfully he might stand in the presence here, with a head full white, eyes flame, and feet like brass. The sword and 7 stars, as I have seen. I who now shudder only in summers, how do your brother bear that sight and live? If I live yet, it is not for good, more love. Through me to men, he ought to ashes there, here, that keep a while my semblance, and who was John. Still, when they shatter, there was left on the earth no one alive who knew. Consider this, saw with his eyes and handled with the hands, that which was from the first, the word of life. How will it be when none more saith, I saw? Such ever was love's way to rise it stoops, since I, whom Christ's mouth taught, was within reach. I went for many years about the world, saying it was so. So I heard and saw, speaking as the case asked, and the men believed. Afterward came a message to myself, in Primus Io. I was not bidden teach, but simply listen, take a book and write, nor set down another than a given word, with nothing left to my parent to choose or change. I wrote, and men believed. Then for my time grew brief, no message more, no call to write, I found a way. And reasoning from my knowledge merely taught, men should for love's sake and the love's strength believe. Or I would pen a letter to a friend and urge the same as a friend, nor less, no more. Friends, I said, I reasoned rightly, and I believed. But at last, why? I seemed left alive, like a sea jolly week on Pranamos strand, to tell dry sea-breached gazers how I fared. And there was the mind sea, and the mighty things. Left to repeat, I saw, and I heard, and I knew. And all I heard is the ground again, with the Antichrist already in the world, and many Antichrists who answered prompt. I am not Jasper, as thou art John. Nay, young, whereas thou age, thou mayest forget. Therefore explain, how shall we believe? I never thought to call down the fire of such, or in wonderful and early days, pick up a scorpion, trend the serpent dumb. Be patient, stated much of the Lord's life, forgotten, misdelivered, and let it work. Since much of that first, and indeed in the word, lay simply and sufficiently exposed. Had grown, or else my soul was grown to match, fred through such years, familiar with the light, guarded and guided still to see and speak, of the significance and fresh result. that first were guessed as points I know new stars, and named them in the gospel I writ. For men said, it is getting long ago. Where is the promise of his coming? Asked these young ones in their strength and lowest to wait. Oh, me who, when the seers were born, is old. For I love them, answered joyfully. Since I was there and hopeful in my age and in my main, I think that the men believed. Folly those enduring, I felt sick. You brought me, and I suppose the end, and then went to sleep, and then one thought that at least, though the whole earth should lie in wickedness, we had the truth, might leave the rest to God. And now I wake in such decrepitude as I slidden down in the fallen afar, past even presence from my former self, grasping a while for stay in the facts of the snap, till I found a way in my own world, feeling in the foothold through the blank profound, along with the unborn people in the strange lands, who say, I hear, said, or convinced to say, was John at all as he did as he saw? Assure us, we ask what he might see. This is a long passage, right? And now I see, I assure them. Can they share, they who have flesh, veil of youth and strength about the spirit that need to bide in time, living and learning still as years assist, which wear the thickness thin and let man see? With me who hardly am withheld at all, but shreddedly scarce a shred in between, lie bare in the universal prick of light. Is it for nothing we grow old and weak? For whom God loves, when pain ends, gain ends too. To me, that story, life and death, of which I wore it was, to me it is here and now I pretend thou else. Is not God how I world this power first made? Is it not his love at his sure still with sin? Visibly when the wrong is done on earth, love wrong and pain, that I see I else around. Yea, the resurrection to uprise, the right hand of the throne. What is beside when such a truth breaking bounds over my soul? And I saw the sin and death, even so I see the need for transparency of both. The good and glory consumed hence, and I saw the power, and I see love. Once weak, resume the power, and I see. Lo, there's recognized the spirit of both, that moving, spirit of the man, and blinds his eye and bids him look. These are I see, but ye, the children, ye beloved ones too. Ye need I should see it opaque glass. I wondered at your while, somewhere I the world. It having given a crafty smirth to make a tube, he turned on objects brought too close, lying confusedly subordinate. For the unassisted eye to master once. Look through the tube at distance now. They lay, becomes subsistent, distant, so small, so clear. Just thus the needs must apprehend what the truth I see, reduced to plain historic fact, diminished in clearnesses, proved a point. And far away, ye would withdraw the sense from art or eternity, strain it upon time, then stand before the fact that life and death stay here at gaze till it depart. Dispread, as though a star should open out. All sides grow the world upon you as the world. For life, and it yields the joy and woe, and the hope and fear. Believe the aged friend. Is just a chance, O prize of learning love. How love might be, hath been indeed, and is, that we should hold henceforth the uttermost. Such prize despite the envy of the world. And having gained truth, keep truth. That is, but I see double weight wearing lead. and the soul leans diversely from the flesh. With the flesh that hath little time to stay, and yields more basement in the soul's emprise. Expect prompt teachings. Healthful was the light, and warmth was a cherishing, and food was a choice. To every man's flesh 1,000 years ago, and now to yours and mine. And the body sprang. At once it's a height and stayed, but the soul no. Since sages who in the noontide meditate in Rome or Athens made to cry some point of eternal power hid yesteryear. And as hereby the power's whole mass extends, so much extends after floating arm, and the love that tops might the Christ in God. And the new lessons shall be learned in these, till the earth's work stop and useless time runs out. So dully work stop and be leaned on these, till the earth's work stop and useless time runs out. So dully daily needs provisions be, for keeping the souls powerless possible, building new barriers as the old decay, saving us from evasions of life's proof, putting the question, does God's love and will ye hold the truth against the world? You know there's no second proof of good gained for flesh from any earthly source. We might go freezing, ages give a fire. Therefore we judge fire at the full worth, and guard it safe through every chance, you know. That fable of Proximus and theft, how morals gain, love's fiery flower grows old. I've been used to hear the pagans own, and out of my mind, but fire, however its birth. Here it is, precious to the sophist now, who laughs the myth of Eutychus to scorn, as precious to those satirists of play, who touched it in great wonder at the thing. While were it so with the soul, the gift of truth once gasped where the soul's gain safe, and sure as prosper is the body's gain to wont. Why man's prohibition would conclude his earth's grumble as both reasons and decides. Weighs first, then chooses, will give up fire for gold or purple, since he knows the worth. Couldn't he give Christ up if his words were plain? Therefore I say, to test man, the proof shift, nor may he gasp fact a fact. And straightway with his life knowledge it, as I say, incumbent bliss of fire. Sigh yea, it has been easier once than now. To give you an answer, I am left alive. Look at me who present from the first. You know what things I saw, then come to test. My first befitting me who had seen. Forsake the Christ thou sawest disfigured, him who trod the sea and brought the dead to life. What should wring this from ye? Ye laugh and ask, what's wrong? Even a torchlight and a noise? The sudden Roman faced his violent hands in fear of what the Jews might do. Just that is written, I forsaken fled, were my trial and ended thus. Yea, my soul had gained the truth and could grow another year or two. That little child, what tender woman had no least of all my sights, but rarely heard them told, who did not clasp the cross with a light laugh, or wrap the burning robe around, thanking God. Well, the truth safe for a year, then not so. Already began the silent work, whereby truth descended of the absolute blaze. Might need love's eye to pierce the outstretched doubt. Teachers were busy whispering. All is true, the ages of report, but the youth can reach where the ages grope steamly, weak to stir and strain. And the full doctrine slumbers till today. Thus the Romans lowered spear and found a bar me who touched the handle truth, now proved the glazing of some new shrewd tongue. This Absion, absurdness of the mates, till incompetent was outcry, save our Christ. wherein so much the Lord's life, forgotten, misdelivered, and let it work. Such work done, it should be done what is to come next. What do I hear say, or convince men say? Was John at all? And did he say he saw? Assure us, ere we ask what we might see. And indeed, a birthum of the late days, and may I ask to bear it all, using my weakness, which becomes your strength? For if a babe were born inside the scout, grew to a boy here, heard a praised son, yet you'll soul glimmer in the light's place. With the loving him and wishful he should learn, would much rejoice himself, blinded first, month by month here, and made him understand how his born darling apprehended amiss. I think I could explain to such a child. There was more glow outside the gleams he caught. Nor needs urge I saw it to believe. It was heavy burthen you saw bear. In later days, new lands are old, grown strange, left without me, which must be very soon. What is doubt, my brothers? Quick it. I see you stand conversing, each new face, either in the fields of the summer, yellow summer eves, on insolence, yet unnamed amid the sea, or placed in shelters neath the portico, out of the crowd in the erroneous town, where now larks sing in the solitude, or muse upon the blank steeps of the stone and sand, idly conjured by universe. And no one asked his fellow or more, where the promise of his coming, but he was relieved by his lives as the power of the love and influencing soul. Quick for the presences, tell the whole mind out, and let us answer be saved, my book speaks on, because it cannot pass. One listens quietly, nor scoffs but pleads. Here's a tale of things done ages since. What truth was ever told the second day? Wonders that could be proved of doctrine. Go for unsought. Remains doctrine, love, well, we must love, and we love most. Power, love in one. Let us acknowledge on records here, accepting these in Christ, must Christ be? Has he been? Not that we ourselves make him. Our mind receives him, but it holds no more. First of the love, then we acknowledge Christ. A proof we comprehend his love, a proof we had such love already in our lives. New first that we should recognize. 'Tis mere projection from a man's inmost mind. And then he loves, thus falls reflected back, becomes accounted somewhat out of him. He throws it up in the air, it drops down to earth, without shape, name, story added. Man's old way. How prove to you Christ otherwise at least? Next, try the power. He made the rules in the world. Centrets, there is the world that we made, now ruled. At least how things have ever been seen. Our sires declared a chariot's yoked steeds, brought the sun up to the east and down the west, which only of itself now rises sets. As if the hand impelled it and will. Thus they long thought that they still will in the hands. But the new questions whispers in the distinct, wherefore must all forces need to be ourselves. We have hands, the will that made our drives. The sun is force, is law, and is named not known. While will and love we do not know marks these. Eyewitnesses attest, so books declare, as that to punish or reward a race, the sun at undue times arose and set, or else stood still. What do not men affirm? But it requires as urgently reward or punishment today, years ago. And none of the expects the sun will impose. Therefore is more passion, mistake, or erring, zeal for right, or change of the truth. Go back farther to the birth of things, ever the will and intelligence of the love, man, which he gives, opposing he finds, as lady her, body, hands, and feet, to hope those it forms he calls his gods. First, Joe Brown. Juno's eyes were swept away. But Joe's wrath, Juno's pride, journeyed long as last, but will and power, and discarded these. And I saw in turn discards the power, the love, and the will. What proveth God is otherwise at least. All else projection from the mind of man. Yea, do not give me wine, for I am strong, but place my gospel where my hands. I say that man was made to grow, not stop. But me, he needed one, and needed no more, having grown but inch by the withdrawn, and he hath no needs and new helps of these. The importance slowly, and the man should mount on each new height in view, and help thereby he mounts. The later strung his foot has left may fall, since all things suffer change, save God the truth. Man apprehends him newly at the stage, whereat earth later drops in the service done, and nothing shall prove twice what was proved. You stake a garden plot with the ordered wicks, to show inside lie germs of herbs unborn, and to check the careless step that would spoil their birth. But when the herbs wave, the guardian twigs may go. Since should ye doubt virtues, question kinds, and no longer for the old twigs ye look, which proved once underlay the lie store of seed, but the herb's self, in light of ye boast. Where the fruit signs are, the fruits are plain, nor miracles need to prove it any more. Doth the fruit show? The miracles, babe, were at first of the root and stem, save both till now. What? Was man made of a wreck will work to wind up and be discharged and straight wound up anew? No, grown his growth last, taught that yearn forgets, may learn 1,000 things, not twice the same. This might be pagan teaching. Now hear mine. I say that as a babe, you feed a while. Become a boy and fit to feed himself. So minds at first must be spoon-fed with truth. When they can eat, babe's nurture is withdrawn. I feed the babe whether it be or no. I bid the boy or feed himself or starve. I cried once that ye may believe in Christ. Behold, this blind man shall receive sight. I cry now. Urgest thou, for I am shrewd, and my smile at stories how John word could cure. Repeat the miracle and take my faith. I say that miracles was duly wrought. When save it, no faith was possible. Whether a charge be wrought, I the shows of the world. Whether the change be from the minds that we see, or the shows of the world so much as no more than God's will for the purpose. What do I see now? Suppose that you were to see a rock round this. Us? I know not. Such is the effort, so faith grew, making void more miracles, because too much they would compel, not help. I say acknowledgement of the God of the Christ, accepted by the reason, solves for the questions on the earth and out of it, and has far advanced thee to be wise. Wouldn't thou improve it to reprove proved? In life's mere minute and the power to use proof? Leave knowledge and revert to how it's sprung. Thou has it, use it, worthwhile it, and die. For I say this is the death and soul death. When a man's loss comes from him from the gain, darkness from the light, from knowledge and ignorance, and the lack of love from love made manifest, a lamp's death when repelled with the oil it chokes. A stomach when surcharged with food it starves, with ignorance was surely a cure. When a man appalled at nature, question first, what's the lurk a mind behind this might? He needed to satisfy God could give, and did give, and ye have written word. But when he finds the might, he still redouble might. He asks, Since all is might, what is the use of will? Will, the one source of might, he being man, with a man's will and a man's might, to teach in a little how the combined and large. That man is turned around to himself and stand, which in the course of nature is to die. And the man questioned, what if there's love behind the will and might, as real as they? Indeed, satisfaction God give, and did give, as ye have written were. But when beholding that love anywhere, he reasons, since the love is anywhere, and since ourselves can love and be loved, we ourselves make love, and Christ is not. Now ye shall help this man know himself, that he must love and would be loved again, and yet owning his own love that proveth Christ, rejoiceth Christ through his own need of him. The lamp overeth the oil, and the stomach flags loaded with nature, and the man's soul dies. If he rejoin, then what was the while a trick? The fault was, first of all, in thee. The story, the places, the names, and the dates, where, when, how the ultimate truth has rise, why prior truth at last discovered none, hence there was second suffers determined. What good of giving knowledge, if because O manner of the gift of the prophet fail? And why refuse the modification to help? Had stopped at the after doubt, impossible, I, the face of truth, truth, absolute, uniform. Why must I hit this and miss that, distinguish just as I be weak or strong, and not ask thee and answer prompt? Was this once or was this not once, and then now and evermore plain truth from man to man? Is John's procedure just as heartened as Bart's? Put question of his famous play again. How for the emperors did Jove's fire afflict, and carried a cane and brought to the earth? The fact of a fable cry the wise. Mortals obtain the boon as much as fact. Although fire be spirit and produce on earth, as with the Titans, how make the tale? Why breed is such plecticity? Mistake. Nor tell the whole truth in the proper words. So you can see how this goes on and on his sayings. He started talking about God. Now he's talking about different truths, what's going on in the world. So go ahead and continue. I answer, have ye to argue out the very primeval thesis, a plainest law? Yes, not God, but hath God's end to stir. A master to obey, of course, to take. Somewhat to cast off, somewhere to become. Grant this, then the man shall pass in the old and new, from vain to real, from mistake to fact, from what once seemed good and now proves best. How could a man have progression otherwise? Before the point was mooted, what is God? No savage man inquired. What am myself? Much less replied. First, last, and best of things. Man takes a title now that he believes. Might can exist with neither will nor love. In God's case, he names how nature's law, while in himself he recognizes love. No less the might and will and rightly lakes, since the man prove the soul existent thing. Where these combine, whatever their degree, however weak the might or will or love, so they be found, and they put evidence, he is surely higher in the scale than any might with neither love or will. As life apparent in the porous midge, when the faint dust speck flicks ye guess his wing, is marvelous beyond dead alas self. Given the doubler midge of the resting place, thus a man proves best and highest God in life. And thus the victory leads but defeat, and the gain and the loss, and the best rise and the worst fall. His life becomes impossible, which is the death. But if appealing hence and he cower, avenge he is a mere man in humility. Neither may know God or mistake himself. I point to the immediate consequence, and say by such confession straight he falls into the man's place. I'll thing nor God nor beast. Made to know that he know and be more. Lower than God knows all and can tell all. Higher than the beast that he knows and can so far as each beast's limit perfect to an end. Nor consciousness that they know, nor craving more. While man knows partly is conceives beside, creeps over on fancies in the fact, and in starving his converting air into the solid he may gasp and use, finds progress, man's distinctive mark alone, not God nor the beast. God is, they are, man partly is, and wholly hopes to be. Such progress could be more attentive as soul, where it struggles after found at first, and guesses changed to knowledge absolute. Then motion weight his body, where all else than the solid earth on every side. Where now through the space he moves to rest and rest, man therefore, thus conditioned, must expect he not that he know not, know that first, and he considers what he knows to be day. Come but tomorrow he find mistaken, greedy, getting increase of knowledge, since he learns because he lives, which is to be a man, set instruct himself with past self. First, like the brute, obliged by facts to learn. Next, a man may, obliged by his own mind. Bent, habit, nature, knowledge turn into a law. God's gift that man should conceive as the truth and yearn to catch it. Catching in fact and deed. A sanctuary ear he should mold a shape, both like a gift in the shape's idea. Next, aspiration to produce the same. So taking claim, he calls the shape a threat. Cries ever now, I have the thing I see, yet all I the while goes unchanging of the route. From falsehood like a truth, and the knowledge, the truth itself, how it were feet, I and faithful flame, rather commend him be slapped in the hands, and laughed in my shape in the lives again. Enjoy the falsehood, touch in the truth, until yourselves applaud the flesh indeed. What is the flesh intimidating claim? Right in you, right in him, such is the beast man's. God only makes the life shape in the jet. Will you renounce the pact of censorship? The pattern of the mount subsists no more. Seemed a while, then return to the nothingness. But copies Moses strove to make thereby, serve still and replaced in the time requires. By these make the newest vessels, reach the type. If ye dare, the judgment on the head, never to reach the ultimate. Angel's law, indulging every instinct of the soul, there where life, law, life, impulse are one thing. Such as a burden in the latest time, I survive by the hear of my ears. Answer it with my lips, does it suffice? For if it were be further, woe is such, wherein my brother struggled in the need in the head. So long as my pulse is left in mine, may I be absent, even longer yet, plucking the blind ones back in my abscess, though I should tarry 100 years. But he was dead, was about noon, the day somewhat was declining. We 5 buried him that eve, and then diving, spent 5 ways, and I discussed return to Euphemus. By this, the cave's mouth must be filled with sand. Valens is lost. I know not of his trace. The barber was a wild, childish man, and he could not write or speak, only loved. So least memory of this go quite. Seeing that I go tomorrow to fight the beast, and I tell the same Phoebos, whom believe, for many look again to find the face. Below dawns to him I ministered, somehow in the life of the world and year. Either mistaken the darkly spoke, or the ending of the book as he relates, or mischieving somewhere in the speech, scattered from the mouth to the mouth, as I suppose, believing you will not see him any more, about the world in the divine regard. For all I was to say in the man, it lay once the breast to breast to God. If Christ is thou affirmest, be of men, mere man, and first and the best, and nothing more. Account him for reward of what he was, now and forever. Wretched of all, for him himself conceived a life for love, conceived in the love he must enter in, fill up, make him with each soul he loved, and thus each man joy and all man's joy for him. Well, he's gone, says fit reward, and by the time those souls set free, and every many retained alive, nay, shall be coming delight a while, say 10 years longer, 12 years, some compute. See if for any finger of the hands that are not be found, and the world shall end, thousands of souls, each holding Christ's word, and he will grow in corporate awe. With me, Felix, and him, John, groom each bride. Can mere man do this? Yet Christ saith, this is he lived and he died do. Call Christ then the all-meritable God, or lost. But it was Cernunnos that was lost. Okay, so that was a really long story / poem. And it was called Death of the Desert. So for your homework, you're going to be actually writing a biography on Robert Browning. So some of you are probably wondering, can I read one of Elizabeth Browning's poems? Sure. It was his wife, but you're actually writing the paper on Robert Browning. But we can read one of her poems. Well, she actually had a lot of elements according to her biography. She had anorexia. She had neuralexia, tuberculosis, arthritis. She fell off her horse when she was younger, so she had some other health issues, like, I guess, injury. So this is a poem called Only a Curl. Friends of the faces of the unknown, and the land of unvisited over the sea, who tell me how lonely you stand with only a single curl in hand, held to be looked at by me, too. While you ask me to ponder and say what father and mother do, with the bright fellow locks put away, out of reach, beyond a kiss, on the clay where the violets press nearer to you. 3. Shall I speak of a poet, or run until the weak women's tears are the relief? Oh, children, I never lost one, and yet my arm around the own son, and the love knows the secret of grief. 4. And I feel as if I must be, and as God draws a new angel so through the horse of a man as his, in the mirror of the music, you miss and rapture light you forgo. 5. How you think, staring at the door where the face of the angel flashed in, and the brightness familiar before burns off for you ever and more, for the dark of the sorrow and sin. 6. God lent him and takes him, you sigh. Yea, you break with the pain, God's generous way, I say, and the thing that he gives, I deny that he ever can take it back again. 7. He gives what he gives, and I appall all those who bear babes, in the hour when the veil of the body we feel rent around us, while torments relieve in the motherhood's aberrant of power. 8. And the babe cries, each of us is known to plex, God being there full of nature, and the child in our own, life of life, and love of love, and mourn of mourn, through all changes, all times, everywhere. 8, 9. He is ours and forever believe. Father, O Mother, look back to the first love's assurance, to give means of the God and not to tempt or deceive with the cutthroats and Benjamin's act. 10. He gives what he gives, be content. He resumes nothing given, be sure. God lends, where users lent his temple, agent he went and scored away the impure. 11. He lends not, but he gives to the end, and he loves to the end, and he seems that he draws the back to the gift. Apprehend, tis, add, rather, amend, and finish it up in your dreams. 12. Or keep as mother toys too costly, throw given by herself till the room shall be stiller than the noise, and the children more fit than the joys, and kept their heads on the shelves. 13. So look up, friends, you indeed who have possessed your house, a sweet peace, for the heaven which men strive for must be need more earnest than the others are. Speed there lower, persist where they cease. 14. You know how the angel smiles there, weep not. 'Tis easy for you to be drawn in the single gold hair that the curl from the earth's storm and despair to the safe place as above Eden. So there you go. To one of her poems. There's one called Love. We cannot live except for thus mutually. We alternate, aware of our own aware, the reflex of life, of active life. And we bear our virtue onward most impulsively, most full of invocation, and to be the most instantly comprehend. Certus, there, we live most of life. Whoever breathes most air and counts the dying years of the sun and the sea. But when a soul by choice and conscience doth throw out her full force of another soul, the conscious and the concentration both make mere life. Love, for life is the perfect whole, and aim consummated is love a soul. As nature a magnet, heat rounds pole with pole. Okay, so we're done there. We have read both Robert Browning and we also have read Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I would like to remind you, though, that you are doing your biography. Go ahead and write 5 paragraphs about this man right here, Robert Browning. He was the poet that was married to Elizabeth. Well, thank you so much. Have a very blessed week. God bless you. May the Lord take care of you and bless you with lots of health and a productive week. See you next week. Bye.